You're done here, Chief. My rules win. And
Your rules end where law starts.
The sound hit before the meaning did. A flat, shocking crack that froze every voice in the community hall. My wife's head jerked sideways, her hand clutching her cheek in disbelief. The echo hung against the ceiling banners that read, "Cedar Ridge votes for unity." For 3 seconds, no one moved. The board chair stood there, arms still halfway raised, eyes daring anyone to challenge her. Patricia Langford, the enforcer in crimson, had just slapped a pregnant woman during an HOA vote. I didn't shout. I didn't even breathe. Years of SWAT training do that to you. You measure chaos before you enter it. Around me, neighbors stared, stunned, half standing from their chairs. Someone whispered, "Did she just—" She did. If you've ever felt that flash of disbelief watching power humiliate innocence, keep listening and hit subscribe right now. Because this is the moment everything in our perfect little neighborhood began to unravel. Patricia adjusted her blazer, calm as stone. She interrupted procedure, she said coolly. Order had to be restored. Order, that word again. The clipboard queen loved it. She built her empire on bylaws and posture, on fear disguised as decorum. Maria blinked through tears. "I just asked for a recount." "You raised your voice," the tyrant in heels replied. "And we all know where that leads." My chair screeched back. The sound made her flinch, but only slightly. I stepped forward, steady, controlled. "You don't touch my wife." The officer of rules smiled faintly. "Chief Hayes," she said, savoring the title. "I assume you're not here in an official capacity?" No badge, no backup, just me. And the child Maria carried. The irony burned. I'd train men to disarm hostiles, negotiate under fire, and spot deception. Yet here, in a sunlit room lined with potted ferns and water jugs, the most dangerous person I'd ever faced wore lipstick the color of judgment. Behind her, the HOA banner shimmered. Community through compliance. I said quietly, "You've just committed assault." Her laugh was soft, rehearsed. "Oh, Daniel, let's not dramatize. Your wife was disruptive. You know procedure matters." Procedure, her favorite shield. The enforcer in crimson turned toward the board table, pretending to review notes. Around her, 3 members nodded like marionettes. None met my eyes. I looked at them all. Neighbors whose lawns I'd trimmed when they were sick. People who'd borrowed tools from my garage. Their silence was the loudest vote of the night. Maria trembled beside me. I placed my hand on hers. "We're leaving," I said. Patricia's tone sharpened. "If you exit before adjournment, it counts as forfeiting your ballot." That's when I saw it, the tiny camera mounted above the exit sign. HOA policy. All meetings recorded. I met her gaze and smiled. "You might want to review that footage," I said. For the first time, the clipboard queen hesitated. Later, they'd claim the angle was obstructed, the feed malfunctioned, the evidence inconclusive. But in that second, she knew I'd seen the trap she'd forgotten to cover. The meeting stumbled on for 5 more minutes. Motions, mumbles, adjournment. When it ended, I walked Maria outside into the parking lot. Air heavy with dusk and disbelief. She leaned against the car, tears streaking foundation. "She hit me, Danny, in front of everyone." "I know. Why didn't you—" "Because the worst revenge is documentation," I said. My neighbor, Tom Rivers, still in his SWAT training jacket, jogged over from across the lot. "What the hell happened in there?" "An assault," I answered, "by the president of this community." He whistled low. "Then she just picked the wrong neighborhood." Inside, through the glass doors, Patricia Langford stood by the podium, collecting her papers with surgical grace. She looked up, caught my stare, and mouthed the words, "Stay in your lane." I didn't nod. I just watched her smile for the camera she thought she controlled. That was her first mistake. By sunrise, word of the slap had spread farther than the HOA minutes ever could. Silver Ridge's online forum was boiling, half the neighbors defending procedure, half demanding Patricia Langford's resignation. The official post from the board chair appeared before breakfast. "Unfortunate misunderstanding during the vote. The matter is being reviewed." Reviewed by whom? Herself? I'd seen spin control before, from city councils to police chiefs. But Patricia moved faster than any bureaucrat I'd ever hunted corruption through. The enforcer in crimson didn't just manipulate narrative, she choreographed it. Maria sat at the kitchen table, the ice pack pressed to her cheek. "They're saying I lunged at her," she whispered. "She has influence," I said, "and she's panicking. That's when people like her make mistakes." The clipboard queen's face filled the morning news feed. Staged remorse, tasteful pearls, perfect lighting. She'd filmed an apology video before the board even reviewed a complaint. "Our goal is unity," she said sweetly. "Violence has no place here." Violence. She'd turned her own hand into a metaphor for someone else's aggression. I stared at the screen. "She's prepping public defense. Classic escalation pattern." Maria looked up. "So, what do we do?" "Collect evidence," I said, quietly. I'd spent years teaching recruits how power covers its own tracks, until it stumbles. Every tyrant in heels eventually leaves a heel print. By noon, I was at the community hall, this time under the guise of retrieving Maria's forgotten purse. The receptionist hesitated. "Mr. Hayes," the board chair said, "access is restricted today." "Which policy is that under?" She froze. I can call her." "Please do." Moments later, Patricia emerged from her office, lipstick perfect, expression polished. "Chief Hayes, I was wondering when you'd come storming back." I smiled without warmth. "Just collecting what belongs to my wife." Her tone softened, falsely sweet. "Your wife is quite emotional. Maybe she misinterpreted—" She didn't. The officer of rules folded her arms. "You can't intimidate me with your badge. This isn't your jurisdiction." "Wrong again," I said evenly. "When assault's involved, it's everyone's." For a heartbeat, her poise cracked. Then she turned sharply to the receptionist. "Escort Mr. Hayes out, now." I left, deliberately calm. Rage was her fuel, composure was mine. Across the street, Officer Laura Chen waited by her cruiser. She'd been the HOA's official liaison during meetings, witness to both the slap and the cover-up now brewing. "I can't comment," she said quietly as I approached. "Off record then," I replied. Laura's eyes flicked toward the hall. "They're trying to get the footage pulled from the server. Patricia's husband runs the security vendor." I exhaled slowly. "Conflict of interest, check." "I didn't tell you that," she muttered, walking off. But I'd heard enough. That night, I logged into the HOA's public site through archived caches, digital footprints most people overlook. The tyrant in heels had signed off every policy memo, every expense authorization, every maintenance contract. Buried in the metadata, I found the timestamps for last night's footage backup. She hadn't deleted it yet. She couldn't risk the optics of tampering while the board investigated. Perfect. Maria came in behind me, holding tea. "You're working again. Just verifying what truth looks like before it disappears." She leaned against me. "You think they'll believe us?" "They won't have a choice." Outside, thunder rolled low across the ridge. One of those dry, electric storms that never quite rain, but promise something heavy. I looked out the window and saw Patricia's silhouette on the sidewalk, framed by the streetlight. She was talking to someone, male, tall, in a suit. They exchanged a folder, quick and discreet. Insurance lawyer, I guessed. She turned suddenly, glancing toward our house, eyes narrowing through the dark. She knew I was watching. And she smiled. That smile said she still believed she controlled the board, the narrative, the neighbors. And maybe she did. But power has blind spots, and hers was about to meet mine, because the footage she thought she'd buried wasn't the only thing recording that night. The next morning, the neighborhood looked the same, but felt nothing like before. The trimmed hedges and pastel mailboxes couldn't hide the fracture running through. Mesquite Ridge. People walked faster, waved less, whispered more. Even the air seemed to carry her name. Patricia Langford. The board chair had turned last night's chaos into theater. A new notice was taped to every porch post. Emergency HOA assembly addressing misinformation. Her signature sprawled at the bottom in bold ink, like a monarch's decree. Maria watched from our front window, her face pale. "She's doubling down," she said softly. "She's terrified," I replied. "That's why she's moving fast." "She doesn't look terrified. She looks proud." The enforcer in crimson never flinched under pressure. She thrived on it. Power was her pulse. She'd learned long ago that when people fear confrontation, control is easy. My phone buzzed, a message from Officer Laura Chen. "Can we talk privately?" I met her at the far end of the community pond, where the geese always screamed louder than gossip. She stood in uniform, cap low, posture rigid, but her eyes gave her away. Guilt lives behind the pupils, subtle, restless, unblinking. "You shouldn't have come," I said. "I know," she murmured, "but what I saw that night, it won't leave me." "The slap?" Laura nodded. "I wrote my initial report before the board reviewed it. Then Patricia called me into her office." My jaw tightened. "And?" "She told me the department would appreciate a revised interpretation, one that avoided the word assault. Said she was looking out for community reputation." "The clipboard queen never requested," she commanded politely. I studied Laura's trembling hands. "You rewrote it." I tried to keep it neutral. "There's no neutral when someone strikes a pregnant woman." She exhaled sharply. "You think I don't know that?" She threatened to file a misconduct complaint if I didn't cooperate. Said I was biased because I live on your street. Her voice cracked, the sound catching like dry leaves. "She owns the narrative," Laura continued, "and everyone's scared of being the next target. The board, the contractors, even the landscapers. She has dirt on everyone." The tyrant in heels built loyalty through leverage. I'd seen her type in interrogation rooms, always smiling, never blinking. "Why tell me this now?" I asked. "Because she's crossing lines even I can't defend. She's trying to seal the meeting footage under a privacy exemption. If that happens, it's gone for good." I glanced toward the clubhouse in the distance. Its windows glared like mirrors, reflecting sunlight and secrets alike. "I can delay her request," Laura whispered. "Maybe 24 hours. After that, I'll lose access. Then I'll make them count." Her expression wavered between fear and relief. "If she finds out I helped—" "She won't," I cut in. "Not until it's over." We stood in silence. The wind carried faint laughter from a nearby picnic, neighbors pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. That night, I worked from the garage. The security feed Henry Dale had given me played across my laptop. Timestamps, entry logs, camera IDs. Somewhere in there was the moment, the truth everyone pretended didn't exist. At 2:17 a.m., I found it, a still frame. Patricia Langford leaning forward, hand mid-motion, Maria recoiling. The image froze her power in pixels, undeniable, unedited, unspinnable. I stared at it for a long time. Then, a flicker in the corner of the screen, someone else in the doorway. Officer Laura Chen, shocked, frozen, half-stepped forward before stopping herself. That hesitation was everything. Proof not just of assault, but of silence. I heard Maria's voice behind me. "Did you find it?" I turned the screen toward her. She gasped. "That's evidence," I said. "And leverage." Outside, a car door slammed. Headlights flashed across our blinds, then faded. I stepped to the window. A dark SUV idled at the corner before rolling away. I knew that shape, Patricia's husband's company car. The officer of rules wasn't sleeping tonight either. I saved the clip to a separate drive, encrypted it, and hid it under a file marked Landscaping Invoices. By dawn, the storm clouds over Cedar Ridge weren't just weather. They were warning. And Patricia Langford, for all her polished calm, had just awakened something she couldn't regulate. A man trained for containment, now unleashed. By the time the emergency assembly began, Patricia Langford had turned the community hall into her courtroom. Rows of folding chairs faced the podium like pews, and every resident had been summoned by a letter stamped "Mandatory Attendance." Board Directive. The board chair stood beneath the skylight, crimson blazer blazing against the pale wood. She didn't need a gavel, her voice did the striking. Maria wanted to stay home, but I convinced her otherwise. "If she's going to rewrite the story," I said, "then we'll be there to watch her stumble over the truth." Inside, murmurs swirled through the crowd. The enforcer in crimson smiled like a hostess welcoming guests to their own interrogation. "Neighbors," she began, "our community has faced unfortunate rumors. I wish to restore peace." Peace. Coming from her, It sounded like a threat wrapped in lavender. I sat halfway back, next to Tom Rivers. His SWAT training had the same side effect mine did. He didn't flinch easily. "Feels like she's prepping an ambush," he muttered. "She is," I said, "but not the kind she thinks." Patricia's eyes swept the room, landing on Maria. A pause, long enough for everyone to remember the slap without naming it. "We must remember," the clipboard queen continued smoothly. "Decorum protects us all. Without it, chaos wins." Every word was aimed at my wife, and every nodding head was her jury. She clicked her remote. A projector screen descended. "Unfortunately," she said, "due to an internal review, the recording from our last meeting is temporarily inaccessible." Gasps rippled. I leaned forward. "Temporarily," I repeated under my breath. The tyrant in heels clasped her hands. "But I assure you, the board's integrity remains spotless. Now, moving on to—" "Point of order," I said, standing. Her expression stiffened. "Mr. Hayes, you're not recognized to speak." "Neither was my wife when you struck her," I said evenly. "Didn't stop you then." The hall fell silent except for the hum of the projector. "You're out of line," she said softly. "Then file it as a violation," I replied. "You're good at paperwork." Color crept into her cheeks. For the first time, her perfect rhythm faltered. "Security!" she snapped toward the back. Two community volunteers moved hesitantly down the aisle. Tom rose beside me. "Sit down, gentlemen," he said quietly. "No one's breaching policy today." His calm voice carried the weight of someone who'd once commanded armed entries. They obeyed instinct before logic. Patricia adjusted her stance, recovering her poise. "See what happens when rules are ignored? This is precisely the chaos I warned about." The officer of rules never missed a chance to twist defiance into proof of her righteousness. I met her gaze. "You talk about order, Patricia, but order built on fear isn't order. It's hostage management." The audience murmured again. Some looked uncertain now, seeds of doubt, tiny invisible cracks spreading across her polished surface. She tried to smile. "Chief Hayes," she said, emphasizing the title, "you of all people should understand protocol." "I do," I said, "which is why I've filed an official complaint with the state HOA Ethics Council." That landed like a grenade rolled across marble. Maria squeezed my arm. The clipboard queen blinked twice, once for surprise, once for calculation. "You went outside the board?" "You left me no choice." She inhaled sharply. "Then you've declared war on your own community." "No," I said, "just on corruption hiding behind welcome signs." For a heartbeat, her mask slipped. I saw fear, real, human, fleeting. Then it was gone. She turned to the audience. "Let's adjourn before emotions rise further. The board will reconvene privately. Translation, retreat, and regroup." When the meeting ended, neighbors avoided eye contact. Some whispered apologies as they passed. The enforcer in crimson disappeared into her office, flanked by two loyalists. Outside, Tom exhaled. "You sure about poking that bear?" "She slapped a pregnant woman," I said. The bear was already loose. Maria looked at me, voice barely a whisper. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, watching Patricia's office lights flicker on upstairs. "We let her believe she's still in control, because people like Patricia Langford never sense danger while they're still speaking. They only feel it when the microphone cuts out. And the world hears the truth instead." That night, Cedar Ridge looked peaceful again, but I'd learned not to trust quiet streets. Quiet in this neighborhood meant someone was working in shadows, and usually that someone wore crimson. Patricia Langford didn't disappear after the meeting. She multiplied. Her name flooded neighborhood threads. Her statement circulated in email blasts. And the HOA website updated with a sanitized recap within hours. A regrettable misunderstanding resolved peacefully. Resolved, as if a bruise could be undone by wording. I sat in my office surrounded by copies of HOA correspondence I'd pulled from archived emails. The board chair's digital fingerprints were everywhere, her tone disguised as diplomacy, her threats coded in bureaucratic language. Every friendly reminder was a blade with lace around the handle. Maria brought in coffee. "You haven't slept." "She's rewriting reality," I said, scrolling through message chains. "Every email is time-stamped, but they don't match the board calendar. She's fabricating records." Maria frowned. Can you prove it? Eventually, but I need leverage first. I opened one flagged message from 2 weeks before the vote. It was from Patricia to a local property inspector. Ensure the Hayes residence is reevaluated for compliance. Front porch extension may violate easement. We'd built that porch 3 years ago, with her approval. Here's the pattern, I muttered. She plants paper trails backward to make future accusations look legitimate. The enforcer in Crimson didn't react to events. She manufactured them in advance. Tom called around midnight. You stirred her hive, he said flatly. She's been stinging people for years. Time someone smoked her out. She's got friends in city code enforcement. Don't underestimate that. I don't, I said. But friendships crack faster than laws when light hits them. I turned to Maria. I need someone inside. Someone who still has access to the HOA's private correspondence. Maria hesitated. Laura? She's terrified, I said. But she's the only one who can make this real. The next afternoon, I found Officer Laura Chen outside the station, leaning against her patrol car. Her posture was tight, her eyes tired. You shouldn't be here, she said. Neither should Patricia be chairing a board under investigation. Laura looked away. You're pushing too fast. She's already talking to legal counsel. Of course she is, I said. That's her next move. Bury the ethics complaint under paperwork until no one remembers why it started. Laura sighed. She told the board you're harassing her. I smiled faintly. Let her. The truth has no expiration date. Laura's jaw clenched. You don't understand. She called the precinct captain this morning, said you were using your position to intimidate her. That hit harder than I expected. Patricia wasn't just defensive now. She was tactical. She's setting up pretext, I said slowly. When people like her know they're cornered, they accuse first. Laura stepped closer, voice low. She's having a private meeting tonight with the property attorney who drafted the HOA's compliance rules. She's rewriting clauses to give herself unilateral suspension authority. That's illegal, I said. She doesn't care. She thinks she's untouchable. The clipboard queen believed paperwork was armor, thicker than any conscience. Where? I asked. Community office after 9. By the time night fell, I was parked half a block away from the clubhouse, windows down just enough to hear the faint hum of voices inside. Through the blinds, I saw Patricia pacing. The tyrant in heels moved like someone auditioning for power she already believed she owned. A second figure sat across from her, a lawyer with gray hair and a nervous pen tap. Their conversation was muffled, but tense. I caught fragments through the directional mic on my phone. Rewrite, preemptive authority. If challenged legally, no one will touch you. I hit record. Every word was oxygen feeding the fire she'd built beneath herself. After 20 minutes, the meeting ended. Patricia stepped out, phone to her ear, heels sharp against the pavement. I don't care what he thinks, she said, voice crisp. He doesn't control me. I smiled in the dark. You're right, I whispered. I just expose people like you. When she drove off, I waited another 5 minutes, then sent the recording to Tom. Chain of evidence started. Back up everything. The officer of rules had just rewritten the bylaws that would end her reign. She didn't know it yet, but tonight, the tyrant's own words had become Exhibit A. By sunrise, Patricia Langford had already gone on the offensive. Her version of events appeared everywhere, from community group posts to local bulletin boards. The board chair had labeled me a threat to neighborhood harmony. The irony burned hotter than the morning coffee I didn't finish. Maria sat across from me, scrolling through her phone, her fingers trembling. She posted your badge number. I took the phone. There it was, my name, my department, and a caption beneath it. When intimidation wears a uniform. The enforcer in Crimson had just declared war in public daylight. She's crossing every line, Maria whispered. Can she even do that? Technically, I said. No, but technically stopped mattering when people started believing her lies. Outside, the sprinklers hissed over lawns manicured into obedience. Neighbors who used to wave now looked through me like I was the ghost, haunting their property values. I opened the folder of audio logs, Patricia's secret meeting with the HOA attorney. The evidence was strong, but context mattered. If I released it too early, she'd twist it. And if I waited too long, she'd erase me from the narrative. A delicate war, fought in timing. At 9 a.m., Tom Rivers called. She's holding another board session tonight, open to residents. Says she's unveiling safety reforms. Sounds like she's setting you up. Good, I said. Let her. Tom hesitated. She's baiting you. She doesn't realize she's being recorded in every direction now. I spent the afternoon preparing the presentation, copies of the audio synced with timestamps, legal references from the HOA codebook, and a letter from the State Ethics Council acknowledging receipt of my complaint. I wasn't walking into a meeting. I was walking into an ambush armed with receipts. By evening, the clubhouse parking lot overflowed. The clipboard queen had mobilized her audience with military precision, rows of residents dressed like jurors, their expressions rehearsed. She stood at the podium, crimson blazer immaculate, voice soft and lethal. Good neighbors, she began. We've endured weeks of unrest caused by false allegations and online harassment. But I promise you, this board will not bend to hostility. Applause. Carefully orchestrated, starting from her loyal half of the room. I waited until she looked directly at me. Chief Hayes, she said, her smile surgical, since you've involved outside authorities, would you care to clarify your intentions for the community? I stood. My intention, I said evenly, is truth. Gasps, small, collective, curious. Patricia tilted her head. Truth then. Let's have it. I plugged my drive into the projector and pressed play. Her own voice filled the hall. Rewrite preemptive authority. If challenged legally, no one will touch you. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder in a cathedral. Murmurs rose. Faces shifted. Someone whispered, "Is that her?" Patricia froze for half a second, then smiled. This recording, she said, was illegally obtained. The chief has violated both privacy law and community ethics by spying on private meetings. The tyrant in heels had flipped the board in one breath. That's a lie, I said. You discussed altering legal documents. Her voice sharpened. Do you have a warrant for that recording, Chief? The room inhaled. I felt the weight of every pair of eyes. I didn't. Not yet. She knew it. This, she continued, is why power must be checked. Even law enforcement can abuse privilege. The officer of rules turned my profession into a weapon against me. Tom stood from the back. She's lying, he shouted. I was there when she met the attorney. Patricia's gavel slammed. Mr. Rivers, sit down or leave. The audience fractured, half shouting, half whispering. The board chair lifted her hand, basking in the chaos she'd engineered. I pulled the USB from the port. Fine, I said. If this meeting won't hear the truth, the state will. Her eyes narrowed. You won't get that far. Maria stood beside me. He already has. We walked out under a storm of murmurs. Behind us, Patricia Langford called for order, but her voice cracked for the first time. Outside, the night smelled like ozone, charged, unstable, waiting. Tom caught up with us. She's filing a formal complaint against you. Abuse of power. I nodded. Let her. Every lie she files becomes evidence. Because bullies like Patricia Langford never realize the spotlight they crave can also expose them, until it's too late. By the next morning, the rumors had mutated again. The board chair had turned last night's chaos into another headline. Chief Hayes disrupts peaceful meeting. Her statement was already circulating through local news feeds, polished and poisonous. Maria read it aloud, voice shaking. She calls you a danger to residents. She's accelerating, I said. That means she's scared. The enforcer in Crimson knew how to weaponize perception faster than any politician, but fear, real fear, makes even precision crack. An hour later, I got a call from Laura Chen. Her tone was tight. Meet me at Station 3 parking lot, no uniforms. I knew that voice, guilt wrapped in caution. She was waiting beside her patrol SUV when I arrived. The early sun caught the badge on her belt, glinting like a burden. You shouldn't be seen with me, she said. I stopped worrying about optics when Patricia Langford started rewriting police reports. Laura flinched. You saw those. I wrote half of the originals, I said. She glanced around. She's pressuring the precinct. Told the captain she'll request a county review if they don't investigate you. Said you're abusing your badge to silence her. The clipboard queen never builds walls. She builds mirrors that make others doubt themselves, I said. That's her real weapon. Laura's hand trembled slightly as she pulled a small flash drive from her pocket. You didn't get this from me. It's an internal memo chain. Patricia's emails with city enforcement and the HOA's legal team. She's been feeding them edited footage, framing you as an aggressor. I took the drive slowly, heart pounding. Why give this to me? Because I was in that room when she hit your wife, Laura whispered. I froze. I didn't report it. And she thanked me later for understanding procedure. Her eyes filled. I can't carry that anymore. For a moment, silence wrapped around us like fog. I nodded. Then let's make it count. We sat in the car, the hum of traffic masking our words. I plugged the drive into my laptop. Inside was a trail of correspondence, Patricia Langford instructing an attorney to sanitize the narrative, another to stage a compliance announcement, and one chilling message labeled Operation Reframe. The tyrant in heels had orchestrated an entire smear campaign weeks before the incident. Every reaction she'd made was scripted. Laura exhaled. She's planning a press conference tomorrow. She wants the city to issue a restraining order against you. I stared at the monitor. Then tomorrow, we flipped the script. That night, Tom joined us at my kitchen table. You're playing with a grenade, he said, scanning the emails. If this leaks wrong, she'll claim retaliation. She already did, I replied. The difference now is proof and a witness. Laura nodded, jaw tight. If I testify, I lose everything. Or, I said, you gain everything she took from you, your integrity. Maria placed a hand over Laura's. You saw what she did. That means you also saw who she really is. For a long moment, Laura didn't speak. Then she said, if we're doing this, we do it by the book. You let me handle the chain of custody. No leaks, no gossip. I smiled faintly. You're starting to sound like me. She returned a half smile. Or maybe you started sounding like me. We worked through the night, cataloging every email, screenshot, and timestamp. Each line of text peeled back another layer of Patricia's empire. The officer of rules had used compliance as camouflage for corruption, and she'd finally left footprints big enough to trace. Around 2 a.m., Tom leaned back. She'll know by morning. I'm counting on it, I said. Fear makes her sloppy. When dawn broke, an alert pinged on Laura's phone. She's online, she said, posting again. I checked the feed. The clipboard queen was live on the HOA page, rehearsed smile in place. Transparency, she said, is our guiding value. Sadly, false actors seek to damage that trust, but justice always wins. I hit record on my phone, capturing every word. Justice, I murmured. Let's see if she still believes that when her own emails hit the Ethics Council inbox. Laura looked at me. Once I send this, there's no turning back. There wasn't, I said, since the moment she slapped Maria. She pressed send. The message uploaded, 8 gigabytes of truth traveling faster than Patricia's lies ever could. And somewhere, in her perfect house lined with HOA plaques, the board chair's phone began to ring. By noon, the silence was shattered. Patricia Langford had struck back faster than I anticipated, and this time, she didn't use rumor, she used spectacle. The HOA website refreshed with a bold headline, Community Alert, Unauthorized Data Breach by Local Officer. Below it, Laura Chen's photo, her badge number, and Patricia's signature beneath the post. The board chair wasn't just fighting for control anymore. She was making examples. Maria gasped when she saw the screen. She's exposing Laura? She's burning her own allies, I said quietly. Classic move when a tyrant senses collapse. The enforcer in crimson had turned fear into fireworks, public, loud, and deliberately cruel. Within hours, Laura's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Her inbox overflowed with hate messages and suspension notices from internal affairs. She sat at my dining table, hands gripping a mug she wasn't drinking from. She called the department before the leak even reached them, she said I compromised evidence, that I fabricated it. She's setting the battlefield, I replied. But she doesn't realize we already control the airspace. Tom looked up from his laptop. Meaning? I opened the drive Laura had given me, the one holding Patricia's private memos. Meaning we stop reacting, we start predicting. The clipboard queen didn't improvise. Every move she made was pre-planned, layered, predictable to anyone patient enough to map her patterns. I spread out printed copies of her messages on the table, highlighting recurring phrases. For community cohesion, within my discretionary authority, with respect to prior precedent, the same bureaucratic camouflage, repeated like code. She's writing herself into immunity, I said. Every letter establishes pseudo-legal precedent. If no one challenges her language, it becomes the de facto rule. Maria frowned. So she's been rewriting the HOA's constitution piece by piece. Exactly. Laura rubbed her temples. And the city attorney never noticed? She's good at disguising ambition as responsibility, I said. The officer of rules knows how to make tyranny look like order. Tom leaned forward. What's the play, Chief? Exposure through sequence, I said. We leak her timeline, not just her words, but how each one builds to the next. Make people see the pattern, not the politics. Maria nodded slowly. Like reconstructing a crime scene. Exactly, I said. We won't accuse her, we'll show her. That afternoon, I drove to the local community center. They were hosting a transparency meeting organized, of course, by Patricia herself. The flyer claimed it was about unity after misinformation. Inside, the hall was standing room only. She stood on stage, radiant in crimson, microphone in hand, the tyrant in heels addressing her kingdom. I've always believed, she said, smiling like a practiced saint, that leadership means protecting even those who misunderstand you. Applause followed, polished, obedient. She continued, Officer Chen's actions have deeply saddened me, but I trust the department will handle this breach appropriately. The hypocrisy was surgical. From the back row, I recorded every word, her tone, her phrasing, the calculated empathy. She was burying Laura alive under etiquette. I texted Tom, Clip 12, false empathy, add to sequence. He replied instantly, got it. Uploading live overlay. We were feeding her words into a pre-built database that aligned her statements with her prior emails. Every time she lied, the pattern lit up red. After the meeting, she spotted me in the crowd. That same predatory smile returned. Chief Hayes, she said, always a pleasure to see you supporting community healing. Always, I said, holding her gaze. Healing needs light. Her eyes flickered. Careful, she murmured. Some things grow better in the dark. And rot faster, I answered. The officer of rules didn't reply. She turned to greet another resident, all grace and poison. I stepped outside into the dusk. Laura waited by her car, nervous. She's trying to have me suspended before morning. She won't succeed, I said. You already sent the files to the ethics office. Her timeline's locked. She'll find a way, Laura whispered. Then we'll find hers. That night, Tom projected Patricia's speech across the wall of my garage. Lines connected between her public statements and hidden memos, each thread forming a web of manipulation. Maria stared at the glowing map. It's like watching her build her own noose. Exactly, I said. By morning, this web goes public, because even the smartest tyrant eventually forgets one rule. Every empire collapses from the center outward. And Patricia Langford had just made herself the center. By dawn, Silver Pines felt wired, like the air itself was waiting for detonation. Every neighbor's phone buzzed with Patricia Langford's latest broadcast, a perfectly edited video clarifying recent misunderstandings. The board chair appeared in immaculate lighting, speaking with gentle concern. Leadership, she said, sometimes requires difficult truths. I forgive those who've attacked me, because division only weakens our community. Maria watched beside me, jaw clenched. She's turning herself into the victim. She's not forgiving anyone, I said. She's laying emotional groundwork. The clipboard queen was good, too good. She'd woven her lies into sympathy, wrapping deceit in velvet. But this time, we were already 2 steps ahead. Tom's laptop beeped. Sequence file ready, he said. On his screen, Patricia's latest speech synced line by line with her internal emails. Every sentence of compassion was mirrored by a command of manipulation. We forgive those who attack us. Discredit the chief's wife publicly. Frame as instability. Our transparency matters. Purge HOA camera logs from June 3rd. The enforcer in crimson had written her own indictment. Laura walked in, wearing plain clothes and carrying a sealed envelope. Ethics Council acknowledged receipt. They're reviewing. The evidence under emergency clause. That means she's running out of time, I said. No, Laura replied. It means she'll get desperate. At 10 a.m., Patricia announced an emergency community address, a live stream, scheduled in 1 hour. She's trying to control the narrative again, Tom said. Then we hijack it, I replied. We rerouted the HOA stream through a mirrored broadcast. While her feed went live, ours would overlay time-stamped emails and audio on her words in real time. No edits, no commentary, just truth speaking beside her mouth. Maria looked uneasy. If this fails, it won't, I cut in. Her empire's built on pretending no one's watching. Today, everyone will. When the clock hit 11, the screen blinked to life. Patricia Langford stood at the same podium as before, the HOA seal glowing behind her like a crown. Her blazer burned scarlet against the beige walls, symbol of control turned costume. Good residents, she began. I've endured weeks of falsehoods, harassment, and unethical interference. Behind her, on our mirrored feed, her own email appeared. Frame the chief as unstable. Exploit sympathy before evidence drops. The room inside the clubhouse rippled. Gasps, whispers, disbelief. She froze mid-sentence, realizing what had just appeared on the projector behind her. What is, she started, but the next overlay cut her off. A transcript labeled, Meeting 2, Audio Confirmation, followed by her own recorded words. If the footage leaks, we shift focus to emotional safety. It always works. The tyrant in heels stumbled, blinking under the fluorescent lights. She snapped toward the tech table. Who's controlling the display? No one answered. Every resident in that hall could now hear her voice, see her lies unravel in real time. Outside, I watched through my phone. Laura stood beside me, breathing shallowly. She's going to call security. She can't unhear herself, I said. On screen, Patricia tried to recover. This is a manipulation, she insisted. A smear, digitally fabricated. But the overlay kept updating, line after line of her own words. Every denial triggered another revelation. The officer of rules was losing control of her own order. The chat on the stream exploded. Is this real? I trusted her. She threatened me too. The narrative she'd ruled through fear was collapsing live. Within minutes, her feed cut to static. Tom exhaled. We're offline. She pulled the plug. She just confirmed it's real, I said. Half an hour later, the HOA office doors slammed open. Patricia stormed out, crimson blazer catching the sun like a flare. Reporters, alerted by Laura's quiet leak, crowded the walkway. Mrs. Langford, one shouted, do you deny ordering evidence destruction? Her smile was gone. No comment. Cameras clicked like gunfire. Laura whispered, that's the sound of her armor cracking. I nodded, and the sound of truth finally echoing louder than her lies. That night, I sat on the porch, the glow of my phone reflecting the trending headline, HOA President's Own Words Expose Corruption. Maria stepped beside me, whispering, You did it. No, I said, watching the stars shimmer above Silver Pines. We did. She built the stage. We just turned on the lights. And somewhere beyond those perfect hedges, the board chair who once ruled through silence was finally learning what it felt like to be unheard. The next 48 hours turned Silver Pines into a circus. News vans lined the boulevard like siege machines. Every headline carried the same phrase, HOA President Accused of Corruption. Patricia Langford vanished from public view for one day, then re-emerged with lawyers, a whole team. The board chair was trading her crimson blazer for courtroom armor. At noon, my phone buzzed with a summons. Civil injunction hearing. Defendant Daniel Hayes versus Silver Pines HOA. Maria read it over my shoulder. She's suing you after everything? She's flipping the script again, I said. If she can't silence the truth, she'll drown it in paperwork. The clipboard queen wasn't bleeding. She was regrouping. When we arrived at the county courthouse, she was already there, perfectly composed, flanked by 2 attorneys and a reporter she'd clearly invited. Her smile was as rehearsed as a politician's confession. Chief Hayes, she said sweetly, I hope we can settle this civilly. Civilly, I said. You accused my wife, framed an officer, and falsified evidence. You don't get to say that word anymore. Her eyes hardened. You should be careful, Daniel. The court respects restraint. The law respects truth, I answered. The enforcer in crimson leaned closer, whispering, and truth depends on who writes the minutes. Before I could reply, the bailiff opened the doors. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Reporters whispered names, camera shutters flicked. Patricia took her seat with calculated grace, the tyrant in heels playing innocence for the crowd. Her attorney rose first. Your Honor, the HOA seeks immediate injunctive relief against Mr. Hayes for unauthorized data access and reputational harm. Every word was laced with performance. Then it was our turn. Laura Chen stood beside me, uniform pressed, voice steady. Your Honor, the so-called breach revealed illegal suppression of public records. The emails came directly from HOA servers, not tampered, not stolen, verified by the Ethics Council this morning. A ripple moved through the room. Patricia's attorney blinked. Objection. The judge raised a hand. Overruled. Continue, Officer Chen. Laura stepped forward, handing over printed logs. Each message contains internal timestamps, authenticated by the HOA's own provider. And this, she paused, clicking the remote, is Mrs. Langford admitting to evidence manipulation. The screen lit up with the recording we'd decrypted back in Part 4. Patricia's own voice, cold and measured. If anyone asks, it was defensive action. Fix the report. Gasps. The officer of rules stared at the screen, face unmoving, but color draining. Maria squeezed my hand under the table. Patricia's attorney stammered, "That clip lacks context." Laura replied, calm and lethal. "The context is the rest of the folder." The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Langford, did you authorize these communications?" She hesitated, just one beat too long. "I don't recall." That pause was everything. The silence hit harder than any confession. The judge turned to her counsel. "I'm issuing a temporary restraining order against the HOA's retaliatory actions until full review." The gavel struck. The tyrant in heels didn't move. Outside, the hallway erupted with questions. Reporters swarmed her. "Mrs. Langford, will you resign? Did you falsify evidence? Was the chief telling the truth all along?" She forced a smile. "I've always acted for this community's good." I stepped beside her. "Then you won't mind if they finally see what that good cost." Her composure cracked. "You think you've won?" "No," I said quietly. "The neighborhood did." She leaned in one last time, voice sharp as glass. "You don't understand power, Daniel. They'll forget tomorrow. They always do." I met her eyes. "Then I'll remind them the next day." We walked opposite directions, her heels clicking like retreating gunfire, my footsteps echoing towards sunlight. Laura caught up with me outside. "She'll appeal," she said. "She can file 100 motions," I replied. But every sound from her mouth is evidence now. Across the street, the news vans rolled their cameras, broadcasting her image. No longer the polished enforcer in crimson, but a woman shrinking under her own spotlight. For the first time, Patricia Langford looked small against the walls she built. The HOA called it an emergency unity meeting. Everyone else called it Judgment Day. The clubhouse overflowed. Neighbors crammed shoulder to shoulder, some angry, some afraid, all waiting for the showdown that months of whispers had promised. Reporters lined the back wall, tripods humming. Patricia Langford took the stage first. The crimson blazer returned, pressed sharp enough to cut glass. If arrogance had a uniform, she'd patented it. "My fellow residents," she began, voice velvet over steel, "our community has been shaken by falsehoods and betrayal. But order will be restored tonight." The board chair's tone dripped serenity, but her knuckles whitened around the podium. I stood near the center aisle with Maria on one side and Officer Chen on the other. The heat from the crowd pressed like static. Patricia's eyes found mine. "Mr. Hayes," she said, "perhaps you'd like to address your allegations before we vote on reinstating confidence in leadership." Gasps rippled through the room. Confidence vote, not removal. She was rewriting democracy mid-sentence. I stepped forward. "You want truth? Let's start there." I turned to the screen behind her, where Tom waited at the controls. One nod, and the first image appeared, her own emails overlaid with HOA policy citations. "Rule 2 to 14, I said. "No board member may use official communication channels for personal retaliation. Your words, Mrs. Langford. Purge HOA camera logs before audit." The clipboard queen blinked once, slow. That's misinterpreted language. Then let's clarify it, I said. Another click, audio playback filled the room. If this gets out, pin it on the chief's wife. The crowd froze. Context? I asked. The tyrant in heels adjusted the mic. Private frustration, not instruction. A murmur built, low, spreading like wildfire. One resident shouted, "You lied to us!" Another, "You humiliated Officer Chen." The enforcer in crimson lifted a hand, smiling too brightly. "Please, let's remain civil." "No," Laura said, stepping beside me. Her voice cut through the noise like a siren. "Civility is what you used to hide behind." Patricia's composure faltered. "You're suspended, officer." "Actually," Laura replied, holding up a sealed document, "I was reinstated this morning, with commendation, for exposing corruption." Applause erupted. Patricia's microphone squealed. I leaned closer, voice steady. "You built this cage, Patricia. You forgot to lock your own door." She turned to the crowd, desperate. "He hacked private data. He violated—" I raised a hand. "Correction, you violated your own charter. Section 9. Any resident may access community logs under safety concern. You signed that clause last year." Her eyes darted, left, right, searching for allies who were already backing away. Even her vice chair avoided her gaze. The officer of rules realized she'd lost her army. Tom switched the feed again, showing the livestream comments pouring in. Every message a verdict. "She's done. Resign. Justice at last." Patricia's voice cracked. "You don't understand what it takes to keep people safe." "Safe?" I echoed. "You sprayed a pregnant woman. You buried evidence. You framed a cop. That's not safety. That's tyranny." Silence, then a woman from the back whispered, "My son was fined for his wheelchair ramp because of you." Another shouted, "You towed my car for parking near my own driveway." The fury became chorus. Every resident she'd ever silenced was suddenly loud. Her crimson blazer seemed to shrink under the fluorescent lights. I stepped closer to the podium. "This meeting isn't about rules anymore. It's about rebuilding. What you destroyed? Trust," she whispered, almost pleading. "You think you can run this place without me?" I met her eyes. "No, I think we can." That broke her. The clipboard queen's facade cracked. First a twitch, then a full tremor of rage and disbelief. The crowd began chanting, "Vote, vote, vote." Someone passed ballots. The energy turned tidal. Within minutes, slips were dropped into a clear box at the front table. The vice chair tallied them silently. For removal of President Langford, 47, against 3. Applause thundered. Patricia Langford stood motionless, eyes glassy, lips parted. The tyrant in heels lowered the microphone one final time and walked out, her heels striking the tile in defeated rhythm. Outside, reporters swarmed, flashbulbs exploding like fireworks over a fallen idol. Laura looked at me. "Is it over?" "Almost," I said, watching the door close behind her. "Power doesn't die when exposed. It dies when forgotten." And that night, for the first time in months, Silver Pines finally sounded like home, quiet, honest, free. By morning, the signs of Patricia Langford's reign were already coming down. The bulletin board that once displayed her presidential updates now held flyers for a neighborhood barbecue. The HOA seal, her symbol of dominance, hung crooked, half peeled from the clubhouse wall. The board chair had vanished after last night's vote. Her house sat dark, blinds drawn, driveway empty. But her shadow still lingered across Silver Pines like smoke after a fire. Maria stood beside me on our porch, sipping coffee. "Feels different today," she said softly. "It should," I replied. People finally remembered who this place belongs to. The enforcer in crimson had ruled through fear, but fear doesn't survive daylight. And today the sun hit every corner of this community she once controlled. Laura pulled up a few minutes later, stepping out of her cruiser. She looked lighter, free in a way I hadn't seen before. "Ethics Council closed the investigation," she said. "Criminal referrals filed. She'll face charges, false reporting, evidence tampering, obstruction." I exhaled slowly. "So it's real, not just a victory speech this time." "It's real," Laura confirmed, "and the department's planning a full policy review on HOA accountability. Your case started something bigger." The clipboard queen had built her fortress on silence, and silence was finally outlawed. I walked with Laura toward the pool, the place where it all began. The water was still, reflecting clouds and calm. Someone had left a white lily floating at the edge. "That spot?" Laura said quietly. "Yeah," I answered. "It's where she hit Maria, where everything broke." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of sprinklers carried through the breeze, steady and forgiving. "She thought she could erase people," Laura murmured. "Erase consequences. The tyrant in heels never understood people don't vanish just because she stopped seeing them." A small group of neighbors approached. Tom, Mrs. Reyes, the Grants, a dozen others. They weren't angry anymore. They were resolute. Tom smiled faintly. "We're setting up a new board. Transparent, rotating leadership, open meetings, no more closed-door politics." I nodded. "That's how it should have been all along." Maria walked over and placed her hand in mine. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You said you'd make sure no one like her ever touches us again." "She made me remember why I wear this badge," I said. "Not for power, for protection." The officer of rules once used policy as punishment. Now those same bylaws were being rewritten to safeguard the people she hurt. Later that evening, the local news aired the final report. The anchor's voice was calm but firm. Former HOA President Patricia Langford faces formal censure following public exposure of falsified records. The Silver Pines community has voted unanimously for structural reform. I watched it from my living room, not as a cop this time, but as a husband, a neighbor, a man who'd finally seen justice without a gun drawn. The enforcer in crimson had been reduced to a headline, and maybe that was the truest punishment: oblivion. Outside, children rode bikes along the cul-de-sac where silence once ruled. The sound of laughter, unafraid, untamed, echoed against trimmed lawns. Maria leaned her head on my shoulder. "Think she'll ever come back?" "No," I said, "but her kind always tries somewhere else." "Then someone like you will be there," I smiled. "Or someone like them." I nodded toward the neighbors stringing lights between houses, rebuilding not walls, but belonging. As night fell, the pool shimmered under lamplight, calm again. The lilies still floated there, delicate, defiant, untouchable. And maybe that's what victory really looks like. Not revenge, not headlines, just peace. I turned back to the camera we'd set up for the closing of our story and spoke quietly to whoever had stayed till the end. If you've ever faced someone who thought power made them untouchable, remember this: truth doesn't shout, it waits. And when it rises, no title, no rulebook, no crimson blazer can stand against it. So wherever you're watching from, never let silence win again. And hit subscribe right now. The screen faded on the reflection of the lily drifting across still water, the symbol of every battle fought and finally won.